Broke up with the woman I loved because her sister's ex-husband convinced me that her family were filled with liars. Then I found out he was actually Absing his new wife and put her in the hospital. Using a throwaway account because several colleagues know my main account and I'd rather not have this situation follow me around the office. All names are changed herein to avoid being found out. I'm 34 and work at a mid-sized firm in Chicago. The last thing I need is for this mess to become water cooler talk. About 3 years ago, my parents started pushing me to consider an arranged marriage. I had gone through a string of failed relationships, including one that ended with my girlfriend cheating on me with my roommate. Another ended when I discovered she was still married. Yet another fell apart after 6 months because she wanted to move to California and I refused to leave Chicago. My career was going well, I had just received a promotion and a substantial raise, but my personal life was a complete disaster zone. After months of my mother sending me profiles of suitable women and my father dropping not so subtle hints about wanting grandchildren before he kicked the bucket, I reluctantly agreed to meet a few of these pre-screened candidates. My mother was ecstatic and immediately arranged 5 meetings in 2 weeks. The first woman brought her mother along, who spent the entire time interrogating me about my finances and family medical history. The second spent our entire coffee date texting someone else. The third was perfectly nice, but we had absolutely nothing in common. She was a devout religious person while I hadn't set foot in a house of worship in over a decade. The fourth and I actually hit it off, but she later admitted she was still in love with an ex-boyfriend and was only meeting me to please her parents. After several more awkward meetings and forced conversations with women I had zero connection with, I was ready to call it quits on the whole arranged marriage idea. That's when my father's friend mentioned his colleague's daughter, Lisa. She's different, he said. Smart as a whip, and has a good head on her shoulders. No pressure, just meet her once. We met at a restaurant downtown on a rainy evening. I arrived early, ordered a coffee to calm my nerves, and prepared for another wasted evening. She walked in 20 minutes late, soaking wet despite her umbrella, wearing a simple blue dress, no excessive makeup or jewelry, just a natural look that immediately caught my attention. She apologized profusely for her tardiness, explaining that her Uber driver had taken a wrong turn and gotten stuck in traffic. The conversation flowed easily, unlike the stilted small talk of my previous arranged meetings. She had a sharp sense of humor, making jokes about the absurdity of our arranged meeting situation. We shared similar taste in music, both loving classic rock bands that none of our friends appreciated. She had traveled extensively for work and pleasure, visiting 17 countries across 4 continents. When I mentioned my dream of seeing the Northern Lights in Iceland, she pulled out her phone and showed me photos from her trip there the previous winter. 4 hours and several courses later, we were still talking when the restaurant staff began closing up around us. Unlike the other arranged setups, Lisa insisted on a long period of getting to know each other before any formal engagement. Marriage isn't something to rush into, she said. I've seen too many hasty decisions end badly. Her parents agreed with this approach, though I noticed her older sister, Celia, watched me with obvious suspicion whenever I visited their home. During our second meeting, over brunch at a cafe near the lake, Lisa told me about her family's complicated history. Celia had gone through a bitter divorce that involved domestic violence accusations against her ex-husband, Aaron. The legal battle dragged on for almost 6 years, costing them financially and socially. Eventually, they withdrew the case and settled privately when the emotional and financial toll became too much to bear. Lisa explained this straightforwardly, not hiding anything, even mentioning that the experience had made her cautious about relationships. Celia changed after that marriage, she said. She used to be the life of every party, always laughing. Now she's more guarded. Especially around men she doesn't know well. Don't take it personally. This made me hesitate. Domestic violence cases can get messy, and I didn't want to get involved with a family that might bring legal troubles or drama into my life. My cousin had married into a family with similar issues, and their holiday gatherings frequently devolved into shouting matches about past grievances. But Lisa seemed so different from what I imagined such a family would be like, level-headed, career-focused, and genuinely kind. After mulling it over for a few days, I decided that her family's past wasn't a reflection on her, and we continued seeing each other. Our relationship progressed over the next 9 months. I met her college friends, who shared embarrassing stories about her undergraduate days. She met my high school buddies, who immediately welcomed her into our long-standing group. I even started joining their family for dinners. Her mother taught me how to make proper tea and always sent me home with containers of homemade food. Only Celia kept her distance, though she was polite enough when our paths crossed at these gatherings. The coincidence that changed everything. Aaron worked for the same banking corporation as me, but in the New York office while I was in Chicago. I never met him personally, but I could easily find information about him through company directories and mutual connections. Most colleagues described him as aggressive but effective and a bit of an asshole, but gets results. Some mentioned his reputation for taking credit for subordinates' work and throwing people under the bus when projects failed. Nothing that screamed abuser, but nothing particularly glowing either. He had remarried about a year after the divorce was finalized, to a woman named Angela. Despite my growing feelings for Lisa, two things kept nagging at me: Celia's cold attitude and the rumors about her that occasionally reached my ears. Several of Lisa's cousins had mentioned at various gatherings that Celia had always been too modern and rebellious even before her marriage. One particularly gossipy aunt cornered me at a family birthday party and called Celia a radical feminist who couldn't keep a husband. Another relative suggested that Celia had Western ideas that don't work in real marriages. These comments, combined with the knowledge about the domestic violence case, planted seeds of doubt that grew over time. I never directly discussed these concerns with Lisa, partly because I didn't want to upset her and partly because I wasn't sure what to say. How do you tell someone you're falling for that you're worried her sister might be the problem, not the victim? So I kept these thoughts to myself, even as they multiplied. During a business trip to New York for a quarterly review meeting, I mentioned to a colleague from the New York office that I was seeing someone from Chicago whose sister used to be married to someone in our company. He asked for her name, and when I mentioned Lisa and explained the connection to Aaron, his eyebrows shot up. By the end of the day, word had spread through the office grapevine, and Aaron had somehow obtained my phone number. He called me that evening after I returned to my hotel. "Look, man, I don't normally do this, but I think you should know what you're getting into with that family." He spoke for nearly an hour, describing Celia as manipulative and abusive, claiming she had frequent violent outbursts and had physically attacked him multiple times during their marriage. According to him, she had fabricated the entire domestic violence case after he caught her cheating with a coworker. Her whole family closed ranks around her, he said. They're good at presenting this perfect image to outsiders, but behind closed doors, it's a different story. I listened without saying much, trying to reconcile this version of events with what I knew of Lisa's family. Aaron was persuasive, his story detailed and consistent. He also had the advantage of speaking directly to my unvoiced concerns about Celia's behavior and the family dynamics I'd observed. The next day, he sent me videos and screenshots via email. One video showed Celia screaming profanities and throwing objects at someone off camera. Another captured her yelling at what appeared to be Aaron's parents, calling them interfering and controlling. The text messages contained threats and abusive language, with Celia apparently saying things like "I'll destroy your career and you'll regret the day you met me." She did this regularly, Aaron claimed in his follow-up call. Her entire family covered for her. Her father would make excuses, saying she was passionate or going through a difficult time. Her mother would clean up the messes, literally and figuratively. And Lisa? She was the worst, always defending her sister's behavior and gaslighting me when I tried to stand up for myself. Just watch out. These people aren't who they pretend to be. I returned to Chicago with these images and conversations burning in my mind. The next time I saw Lisa for our regular dinner date, I couldn't focus on anything she said. All I could think about was whether her entire family was hiding their true nature from me, whether this sweet, intelligent woman across the table was actually manipulative and deceitful. I must have seemed distracted because Lisa asked several times if something was wrong. I brushed it off, claiming work stress. The breaking point came after a dinner at her parents' house. The conversation turned to a news story about workplace harassment, and Celia made a comment about men who can't handle strong women and how they resort to bullying when they feel threatened. Something snapped in me. I saw it as confirmation of Aaron's claims, proof that she viewed all men as potential oppressors. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur, with me barely participating in the conversation. After we left, I drove Lisa to a park near the lake instead of taking her home as planned. She seemed confused but didn't object. I parked the car in an empty lot. In the parked car, I confronted her. The words poured out uncontrollably, like a dam breaking after months of pressure. I called her family liars and manipulators. I accused them of covering up Celia's behavior and fabricating accusations against an innocent man. I mentioned the videos and messages, describing them in detail. I said I couldn't marry into a family that would manipulate the legal system with false accusations just because a marriage didn't work out. I called her father weak for not controlling his daughters better and her mother complicit in maintaining their family's false image. Lisa stared at me throughout this tirade, her face becoming increasingly rigid, her hands gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. When I finally stopped to breathe, she gathered her belongings and opened the car door. "You've shown me exactly who you are tonight," she said. "Congratulations on that. Don't call me again. Don't message me. Don't contact my family. Just fuck off." She slammed the door and walked away, phone already in hand as she called an Uber. I sat in the car for nearly 2 hours before driving home, replaying the conversation and feeling a growing sense of righteousness. I had dodged a bullet, I told myself. I had uncovered the truth just in time. The aftermath was brutal. My mother berated me for ruining a perfect match and throwing away the best girl you'll ever meet. My father didn't speak to me for weeks, leaving the room whenever I entered. My sister called me an idiot and said I had the emotional intelligence of a rock. Friends who had met Lisa stopped inviting me to gatherings, and one bluntly told me I had massively fucked up. For 10 months, I tried to move on. I returned to the arranged marriage route, meeting 12 women selected by my increasingly desperate mother. I created profiles on 3 different dating apps, went on 27 first dates, and even briefly dated a coworker. Some of these women were objectively attractive, successful, and interested in me. Yet each time, the conversation felt forced, the connection hollow compared to what I had experienced with Lisa. One woman even called me out after our 3rd date, "You're clearly not over someone. I can see it in the way you check out of conversations, in how you compare everything to some invisible standard. Deal with that before wasting more people's time." She left me sitting alone at a restaurant. 2 weeks ago, while having drinks with colleagues visiting from various branch offices, someone mentioned a scandal at the New York location. Erin's name came up, followed by murmurs and knowing looks. When I pressed for details, a senior manager who had worked directly with Erin explained, Erin's wife, Angela, had filed domestic violence charges against him after he put her in the hospital with 3 broken ribs and a concussion. This time, there was solid evidence, hospital records documenting multiple previous accidents, witness statements from neighbors who had repeatedly heard shouting and things breaking, even security camera footage from their apartment building showing Erin dragging Angela by her hair through the lobby after a company event. Erin had been suspended pending investigation, and the firm was distancing itself from him, scrubbing his name from the website and reassigning all his clients. I excused myself from the table, claiming a headache, and left the bar immediately. I wandered the streets of downtown Chicago for hours, my mind racing with implications. Everything I had believed, everything I had said to Lisa, was built on a complete misreading of the situation. I had trusted the word of a man I barely knew over a woman I claimed to love. I had accepted selective evidence without questioning why Erin would reach out to a stranger to share such personal information in the first place. Eventually, I found myself sitting on a bench near the lake at 3 a.m., watching the pre-dawn light reflect off the water. My phone battery had died hours ago, and the cold had seeped through my work clothes, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was the look on Lisa's face as she walked away from my car that night, and how thoroughly I had betrayed her trust. Over the next few days, I checked Lisa's social media accounts, only to discover she had blocked me on everything: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, even Spotify, where we used to share playlists. I tried messaging her once from a new Instagram account I created specifically for this purpose, but received no response and found myself blocked again within hours. I even drove past her parents' house once, pathetically hoping to catch a glimpse of her car or perhaps run into her father in the front yard, but the blinds were drawn and no one came or went during the 2 hours I waited down the street. In desperation, I contacted her best friend, Tanya, explaining the situation and asking for a chance to apologize to Lisa. I wrote a long message detailing what I had learned about Erin and how completely I now understood my mistake. Her response was blunt and immediate: "She's finally happy again. Leave her the fuck alone before you ruin that too." Then she blocked me as well. Yesterday, against all better judgment and ignoring the warnings from friends and family who knew about my situation, I sent a message to Lisa's father on Facebook: "Sir, I recently learned about Erin's situation with his current wife. I understand now how completely wrong I was about everything. My behavior was inexcusable, and the things I said about you, your wife, and especially Celia were baseless and cruel. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for a chance to reconnect with Lisa. I simply wanted to express my sincere apologies to you and your family for the hurtful things I said and the pain I caused. I hope you are all doing well." This morning, I received a notification that Lisa had unblocked me on WhatsApp. I opened the app, stupidly allowing myself to hope for reconciliation or at least a civil conversation. Instead, I found this message: "You miserable piece of shit. How dare you contact my father? He had a fucking stroke last month. The last thing he needs is to be reminded of the asshole who called him a weak man and his daughters liars. Your apology isn't about making amends, it's about making yourself feel better. Well, congratulations, you've made everything worse. My father didn't tell me about your message, but my mother did, and now I have to deal with this bullshit while trying to help my father recover. Stay away from me. Stay away from my family. If you contact any of us again, I will file for a restraining order. I mean it. She blocked me again immediately after I read the message. I've spent the last 24 hours staring at the walls of my apartment. I called in sick to work. I haven't eaten. I haven't showered. I keep rereading her message and seeing the complete justification in her anger. The worst part is knowing that I've caused additional pain to a family already dealing with a medical crisis. So, Ida, for trying to reconnect and apologize after learning the truth? Should I have just lived with my mistake and left them all alone? Update: it's been 2 weeks since my last post. First, thanks to the thousands of you who called me an asshole in the comments, you were absolutely right. The few people who suggested I keep trying or fight for her or show up at her workplace with flowers gave terrible advice, and I'm an even bigger idiot for letting those comments influence me. Special thanks to the person who wrote a detailed 2-paragraph explanation of why my apology was selfish and performative. You actually made me think for a minute there. After reading through hundreds of comments calling me self-centered and telling me to leave Lisa's family alone, I initially decided to do just that. I deleted her contact information from my phone, removed all our photos from my cloud storage, unfollowed mutual friends who might post about her, and tried to focus on work. I even downloaded a meditation app and attempted to practice letting go as several commenters suggested. That lasted exactly 3 days. On Friday night, after several drinks with a coworker who was going through a breakup of his own, my alcohol-impaired brain decided I hadn't tried hard enough to make amends. My coworker, equally drunk and emotionally raw from his own situation, encouraged this line of thinking. "If you're really sorry, you should make sure they know it," he slurred, ordering another round. Actions speak louder than words, man. Armed with this profoundly stupid advice and 10 whiskeys, I grabbed my phone and typed out a long email to Lisa's mother, explaining how I had grown as a person and learned from my mistakes. I detailed the timeline of my revelation about Aaron, including screenshots of company emails discussing his suspension. I included links to news articles about his ongoing legal troubles as if she wouldn't already know about them. I even suggested meeting for coffee to discuss how I might make things right with Lisa and offered to contribute financially to her husband's medical expenses as a gesture of goodwill. I woke up Saturday morning with a pounding headache and only vague memories of sending the email. Checking my sent folder confirmed my worst fears: 5 paragraphs of rambling apologies and offers of assistance that now, in the harsh light of sobriety, read like the desperate attempts of a stalker to maintain contact with his target. Around noon, my phone began ringing with calls from an unknown number. I ignored them at first, assuming it was a spam caller. After the 6th call in 30 minutes, I finally answered, my voice rough from hangover and lack of sleep. It was Celia, Lisa's sister, the woman I had essentially called a lying, abusive manipulator who had falsely accused her ex-husband of domestic violence. "Listen carefully because I'm only going to say this once," she said. There was no anger, no emotion at all, just cold precision in each word. "My father is in physical therapy learning how to walk again after his stroke. My mother is splitting her time between caring for him and helping run the house, which is struggling because she can't be there full-time anymore. Lisa has finally stopped checking your social media and crying over what you did. And now you email my mother asking for coffee?" I tried to explain that I was drunk when I sent the email, that I hadn't meant to cause more problems, but she cut me off before I could finish my first sentence. "I've spent 10 years dealing with men like you and Aaron. Men who think their feelings matter more than everyone else's. Men who cause damage and then expect forgiveness on their timeline. Men who cannot comprehend that other people's lives don't revolve around their need for absolution. Here's what's going to happen: you will never contact anyone in my family again. Not my parents, not Lisa, not our cousins, not our friends. Not through email, not through social media, not through mutual acquaintances. If you do, I will personally file a harassment claim against you. I will contact your employer with documentation of your behavior. I will make this public. Do you understand?" I managed to say yes before she hung up. Later that day, I received an email from her account with screenshots of my drunken message to their mother attached. She had copied Lisa, their parents, and, to my complete horror, my parents on the email. The message simply said, "For documentation purposes." My mother called within minutes, more furious than I've ever heard her. Turns out, she and my father had stayed in touch with Lisa's parents after the breakup, partly because they had become genuine friends during our relationship and partly because they always hoped we would reconcile. Now, because of my actions, that relationship was over too. My mother had received a polite but firm message from Lisa's mother asking them not to contact her family again. "Your father and I raised you better than this," my mother said. "That poor man is recovering from a stroke, and you're bothering his wife with drunken emails? Offering money like they're charity cases? What is wrong with you?" My sister came to my apartment that night after my mother called her in tears. She found me sitting in the dark, still in a week's clothes, surrounded by takeout containers and empty beer bottles. She didn't comfort me. She didn't offer sympathetic platitudes. Instead, she turned on all the lights, opened the windows, and started cleaning up while calling me every variation of pathetic and selfish in her vocabulary. Then she made me delete every possible way I could contact Lisa or her family. She deleted their contact information from my phone, blocked their profiles on my social media accounts, removed their email addresses from my contact list, and even installed some parental control app that blocks me from accessing their profiles or sending messages to their accounts while drunk. She took my laptop and deleted all the photos I had of Lisa, including the ones I had hidden in obscure folders. "You need professional help," she told me, removing the final beer from my refrigerator and pouring it down the sink. "This isn't about Lisa anymore. This is about you not understanding boundaries and turning into a creep. If you were a stranger doing this, we'd all be telling Lisa to call the police." At my sister's insistence, I've started seeing a therapist twice a week. She specializes in relationship issues and addiction, though I'm not sure I qualify as an addict. During our first session, I showed her the original post and all the comments calling me an asshole. She didn't disagree with them. Instead, she asked me to consider why I kept trying to insert myself into the lives of people who had clearly asked me to stay away. "This isn't love," she said after I described my repeated attempts to contact Lisa and her family. "This is about your ego and your inability to accept that some mistakes can't be fixed. Some bridges stay burned. Part of becoming a mature adult is learning to live with the consequences of your actions without expecting the people you've hurt to make you feel better about it. I've deleted dating apps from my phone and told my mother to stop arranging meetings with potential matches. I'm trying to focus on becoming a person who wouldn't behave the way I did, rather than trying to convince Lisa that I've changed." So there you have it. I'm still the asshole, just an asshole in therapy now. Let this be a lesson to anyone else who thinks they're entitled to forgiveness just because they finally realized they were wrong. Sometimes the best apology is leaving people alone and letting them heal without you.